an overview. The title of this night is The Pig Connection. Obviously, I'm going to talk about pigs, and I'm going to talk about why the pigs make a connection in Solomon Islands. How many of you know where Solomon Islands is? Yeah? Yeah, in the Pacific. And how many of you knew where Solomon Islands is before this talk? Maybe some of you checked it on the internet before coming. You knew that. Anyway, for those who don't, Solomon Islands is to the east of Papua New Guinea, between Papua New Guinea and other islands like Vanuatu, island states like Vanuatu and Fiji. And I went there between September 2011 and September 2012 to do the fieldwork component of my doctoral research. I was doing research on a theme that is called the domestic moral economy. So it's made up of domestic, so in the house, moral, so it is with values and virtues, and economy, so the translation of values and virtues into material values. And I was living in Honiara, the capital city, on the island of Guadalcanal, but I was moving a lot between Honiara and Malaita, because the people who move to Honiara do so mostly because of economic opportunities, but also because nowadays the state capital, it's a site of mixing up with people from other provinces. So it has come to mean something like an initiation stage in the life of a person. They go to the capital city, they engage in work activities or education activities, and that's a life-changing experience for most of them, because life in town is so different from life in other areas like Malaita or other provinces in the Solomon Islands. And as an anthropologist, I was spending most of my time with the people in the so-called squatter settlements, which are not in the center, but in the periphery of the capital city. They live a pretty hard life. Most of them don't earn more than about £1 a day, each single person. And so they have to find all sorts of means to generate an income. And that's particularly difficult for some of them, because earning an income sometimes conflicts with traditional values such as community, family, sharing. In Solomon Islands there is a tendency called one-talkism, which comes from the word one talk. One talk comes from the English word one talk, so one language. People tend to spend time with people from the same linguistic area. So, for example, people from Malaita tend to spend time with other people from Malaita in the capital city. So they create small villages within the city. And in these small villages, we can find some cultural traits that are very similar to the cultural traits we find in their place of origin. But at the same time, they have to come to terms with the values of the city. So, for example, engaging in a working activity that is just about you as an individual professional, and to some extent you have to forget about your relatives. But your relatives will knock at your door and ask for support. And if you refuse that support, you're not really a man of tradition. So you see, these people are really struggling to find the balance between the obligations they have towards their families and the desire, the genuine desire they have to make not just a living, but to live their life, to find an existential meaning in what they do. So that was the topic I was looking at. Moral values, economic values in the house. One of the things that generate the most debate is how do we organize a wedding? So let's start with what is love in Malaita and how a boy and a girl get to meet each other and embark on the pathway towards marriage. Love is regulated by tradition, and according to tradition, a boy and a girl are not really supposed to interact much. So when a boy likes a girl, he's not really supposed to interact with her, he's not really supposed to let her know, but he has to if he wants to propose. So all the interactions that he will have with her have to be disguised, have to be very, very subtle. Next stage is to go in the other villages or the other houses in the village, and the father will talk to his brothers and say, we should all come together and have a discussion, because our son, he wouldn't say my son, he would say our son wants to get married. He fell in love, he found a girl, it's a good girl, so we should do something about it. And the father is not really supposed to request anything. It's up to the brothers to stand up and say, okay, I listened to your request, and this is what I have to say, this is what I have to give. Usually the discussion is about two main things, pigs and tafuliai. Tafuliai is wrongly called shell money because it's made of shell chips. It's a long necklace made of shell chips. Money because during colonial times, when colonial officers and anthropologists were observing weddings, they would see the bride and the shell money being exchanged. So their assumption was, okay, this guy is buying this woman with the shells, so let's call this shell money. But if you use... So after the conversation, the father knows that he can count on, let's say, 10 tafuliai from 5, 6, or 7 brothers. Next topic is, how many pigs are we going to give? Same discussion. Some brothers will have 2 pigs, some brothers will have 1 pig. At the end of the discussion, the father will know that he has this capital to give to the bride's family. They will have another meeting at this point to negotiate about the so-called bride price. So how much are we actually going to give in exchange for this girl? When this meeting happens, it's the father of the girl and his brother. When a father and the other father negotiate, it's really difficult to say no. You know, because we're talking about love, we're talking about our children who have decided to go towards marriage. So I observed a very interesting situation in which a father and the boy's father and the girl's father couldn't really get to an agreement. But they couldn't say, look, I don't like your offer. So the conversation was stuck. And then the mother of the girl whispered something to the ear of her husband. And her husband told to the brother of the boy's father, the mother of the girl would like 10 tafuliai, not 9, as you proposed. And because the father of the boy is not really allowed, no other man is allowed to say anything about someone else's wife, he cannot negotiate anymore. He cannot say anything. So I think this is really interesting because we, especially in a patriarchal society like Malaita, we tend to think that women have no power. In this case, this woman decided everything with just one whisper. So let's say that the families have decided that 10 tafuliai is a good bride price and that 10 pigs is a good contribution. At that point, the father of the girl has to give 10 pigs in turn. So in total, we will have 20 pigs for the wedding. Next step is the celebration of the union. The whole family will come out of the house and they will meet in front of the house. The male relatives of the groom will set up a frame, like a door shape, made of 3 sticks. And they will hang the tafuliai on the frame. And then a mat will be placed about 5 meters from the frame, and the girl will stand there. The union happens, and only at that point, officially, the boy can touch the girl. At that point, they are together, and they can go to live together. The wedding feast, so the food. And it's a long process, because we have to give food to a lot of people. We have 20 pigs to butcher, and we have to prepare all the other things that go with the pig. The first step is to prepare a motu. A motu is a traditional oven. It's made with stones that have the quality of keeping the heat, so they can become really, really hot. Usually they are amassed together, and then they prepare a huge bonfire to make them hot. Then when the fire goes off, they clean the stones, and then they place some tubers on the stones. They have sweet potato, and this way they have kasava, the heat, and taro. They just leave it there, slow cooking, for many hours. As the tubers cook, the special guest is being dealt with, the pigs. Pigs are really, really important because they are a gift. So it's not just the meat, it's not just the object, it's the substance that comes from the giver, in this case, both families, coming together in one single recipe. But pig is even more than that because it's a rare commodity. You don't eat pigs every day because there are not so many of them, and because it's very expensive to have them, and meat of pork, they get really excited. And you can really feel the atmosphere in the village when this happens, because people are excited about the fact that they will soon taste that delicious meat again. It's really difficult to talk about the delicious taste of meat these days, but not many people in the Solomon Islands would understand this attitude, because for them the pig of pork, the meat of pork is sacred, and it's delicious, and it's really, really precious. So when it's time to kill the pigs, especially all the boys get really excited and they start to play with the pigs. They don't just kill them, they want to enjoy the process of butchering them. So, and they do so in a way that we would probably consider torture. You know, they don't really prepare the pig for the killing, they just play with it. We have to look for a source of water to clean, the inside. And water, especially in the highlands of Malaysia, is not everywhere. So you have to travel to the water source. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the most dangerous things I've done in my life, because imagine walking on the edge of a cliff with slippery terrain with 50 kilos on your back. Yeah.
But this ritual before the death of the pig, what it means for them? For example, in Spain, the bullfighting, they do a ritual with a poor bull, and they think that they are honoring because he is brave. But they are torturing that bull before to be in the square and do that kind of horrible show. Mm. So what about here? What do they mean, that ritual for them? Well, they are honoring the pig, the animal, or?
Honoring would be, I think it would be too much. They are delaying the moment, I think. My interpretation.
Playfulness.
Yeah.
They are enjoying.
And then there is the distribution. Obviously, because the meat is so precious, we cannot just distribute it without criteria. This guy is the father of the bride, so he knows. You see that hand, this notebook. This notebook is full of entries. He took note of all the contributions from all the other relatives, so he knows that he has to give back at least a good piece of meat to a particular relative. Their way of making it meaningful is using pigs and tafuliai. I've tried to explain why pigs are so meaningful, because they come from different families, because we cook them together, and because we eat them together, so they will become part of us. And after eating the meat that we produce together, that we cook together, we will become part of each other forever. It's the same thing with the tafuliai. It's a long necklace, but there is much more than that. It's a necklace made up of shell chips that come from the Langa Langa Lagoon. The people from the Langa Langa Lagoon are the only one who can find the good shells and the only one who can rework them in the proper chips, the proper color. There is a long process to prepare them to become part of a tafuliai. So we only buy them from people in the Langa-Langa Lagoon. They are very expensive. But their material value is not what's important about them. What's really important about them is the way in which they are manufactured, which is in symmetrical sections. So you have, first of all, 2 stripes of red cloth at the extremes. Red cloth represents the blood of 2 families who have decided to come together. The symbolism of blood is reproduced at the extremities and at the center, where you have the most precious and rare types of shell, which is red again. And it's interwoven in a way that really symbolizes unity. And then you have other sections that again symbolize the fact that we have difference, but difference that come together. So the symbolism of tafuliai is really one way to transform 2 different bloods into one blood. So, to conclude, what I was trying to communicate tonight is that in Solomon Islands, when they want to unite families, when they want to unite 2 persons, when they want to create a destiny together and enlarge the family, they do it with the pig connection and the tafuliai. The tafuliai is a sacred currency. Has to be used only in sacred situations. And when I say sacred, not in the sense of religion, but in the sense of morality mainly. So for example, if I did something that offended you, you can request me to compensate this offense with tafuliai.
2 weeks ago, and we butchered them together, a group of us last week, and these are the livers from those pigs, and quarter battery with a little bit of compost on top. But it was interesting when me and Rodolfo were talking about this talk a few months ago now, and we got onto the topic of the connection to animals, and I think something
the more important part, I think, is a way.
you know, when you were talking about their idea of torture, or our idea of torture is not at all their idea. You know, it's completely different.
Yeah.
And that here we have such a different connection to our animals. And with these pigs, this was
my year in the Solomons was really life-changing and beautiful, and a good experience in so many respects because of the attitude they have towards white men.